Okay, good morning. We're up to Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph. I'm on Aleph. We have a very geschmacka daf. We're going to do our best. Of kind of Rav. Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph. Top line. Cheresh sheyachol ledaber mitoich haksav. A cheresh that's able to write mitoich haksav. So he's able to go ahead, right? And he's able to go ahead and divorce from a ksav. Good. We'll go over here. This person got married. Deraisa. He was normal when he got married. He was normal when he got married. Okay, let Avi on. A late arriving crowd. Okay. Anyway, let's start again. You got a person, he's married, gave kedusha deraisa, totally normal, and then all of a sudden he becomes a cheresh. He becomes a cheresh. He's not able to hear. He's not able to speak. He becomes a cheresh. But he's able to write down biksav to divorce his wife. Question, is he able to do that? Says the Gemara, Amrav Kan Amarav, cheresh sheyachol ledaber mitoich haksav, a cheresh that's able to go ahead and speak mitoich haksav, koisvin noisen get leishtay. He could write and give a get to his wife. Even though the kedusha is the rabbanon, deraisa, kedusha is deraisa, and usually a cheresh cannot go ahead and divorce his wife, because he doesn't hear. Usually the kedushin of a cheresh is usually the rabbanon. The Gemara says in Yevamis that he can go ahead and be nichtis b'remiza v'yaitze b'remiza, right? We had that earlier in the Masechta also. So here the chiddush is, even though the kedushin was the raisa and he's a cheresh now, since he knows how to write, if he write, he doesn't hear, he doesn't speak, but he writes to divorce his wife. Says Rav Kahan in the name of Rav, it will be a good get. I'm Rav Yosef. My kamashmalam. What's the big chiddush? Tanina, we learned in our Mishnah, nishtadek, if he can't speak, a person became an elaim. Again, be aware, he's still able to think, he's an elaim. He's not able to, he's able to hear, he just can't speak. V'amru loy, and we say to the elaim, nichtav gela ishtecha, and we said, v'arachim b'roishai, and he nods his head. Both going to say shalish pamim. We said yesterday you checked with two no's, one yes, two no's, and he goes ahead and shows that he's not just a bobblehead, that he knows exactly what he's talking about. Imam alav lav al hein hein hariel ichtu v'yidnu. So kal v'chaymer, if he could write. In other words, I would think writing, you can divorce my wife, is a bigger simon than going ahead and nodding your head to a person's dibur. So what's Rav Kahana in the name of Rav being mechadish over here? The fact that you can divorce your wife if you're a cheresh biksav, our Mishnah says if you're an elaim, you don't even have to write. So l'chay, what's his chiddush? And it's as I read the Gemara. I'm Rav Zera. Rav Zera says elaim kamrit. You're comparing an elaim to a cheresh. 1 second. Shiny elaim. An elaim, a mute is different. The Tanya, medaber vein shemeya. Someone who can speak and can hear. Zeru cheresh. Shemeya vein medaber zeru elaim. You know why? Because they have one of the other capacities, either the ability to speak or the ability to hear, right? But okay, and so what's the teretz over here, fellas? That Rav Kahana is saying is chiddush by a cheresh that can do neither. You want to bring you're asking what's the big deal? Our Mishnah clearly says that if you make a remez, it works. Certainly, biksav would work. So, what's the chiddush of Rav Kahana? Answers the Gemara. I'll tell you the chiddush of Rav Kahana. Even though he can't hear or can't speak, he's a total cheresh. He can divorce his wife biksav. That's the chiddush. And our Mishnah is not such a chiddush. Now, just the Gemara digresses for a second to touch up the word elaim and cheresh. Says the Gemara, "Umaydim medaber ben shemei is a cheresh." Shemei ben medaber ze elaim dichsiv v'ani kecheresh lo yeshma uchilaim lo yiftach piv. So it says David writes ani kecheresh lo yeshma. So you see a cheresh can hear ukilaim, and I'm like elaim lo yiftach piv, whose mouth is not open, I can't speak. People say ishtakel milule. His words milul, like ruach memalala, creature of speech. Ishtakel milule. His words are taken away. Nutrikin, guys, ishtakel milule is elaim. The aleph in the beginning, the night. That's nutrikin of elaim. Okay, so we answered. We had a kasha. We have a teretz. What's the chiddush? Our Mishnah? No, our Mishnah is different. Our Mishnah is speaking about an Elam who can't speak what he can hear. Rav Kanarov is chiddush is that even though he's a total cherish, he can't speak, he can't hear, he can divorce his wife B'ksav. Says Amar Rav Zera. That's what Rav Zera answered to Rabbi Yosef. So, however, Rav Zera says, but 1 second, I don't think Rav Kahana is totally off the hook. Why? If a kasha on Rav Kahana's din in the name of Rav, kashali. I said, Rav Kahana Rav. I'm going to start saying Rav Kahana. Let's Rav's there. The Tanya. We know there's there's a shuas edus. If a guy swears falsely, there's no edus, and then afterwards he has to bring a carbon, right? Carbon shuas edus. Elo yagid. If he doesn't go ahead, proudly elaim. Sheni yachal hagid. In other words, an elaim would be out of the parsha of a carbon shuas edus because he's not able to speak. Says the Gemara, why would it be out of the parsha? Because you say you can't say this. According to you, Rav Kahana, so in other words, he's in the parsha of Edis. He's able to write. So Bishleim, if you hold an Elaim's out of the parsha completely, I can understand the chazal that says probably Elaim, you can never bring a carbon shuas Edis. Right, because he can't speak. But according to you, that he doesn't have to speak Rav Kahana, that he's able to communicate b'ksav, that should be Haggadah Eidus. Haggadah Eidus, she's b'chayiv shuas Eidus. If he goes in and writes, he doesn't know, and he admits the truth. Amalei Abayam, Eidus Kamrit, you bring in shuas Eidus. We're speaking about divorcing his wife. What are you bringing in Eidus for? Where can you tell Eidus to what to get? Shiny Eidus, the Rachman Omam, PM, blame b'ksavam. There's a special Gzerek Sakosim by Eidus. It has to be PM from their mouth and not from the ksavam. By get, there's no special din. It has to be what mipi. You just have to know what his rutzin is. So just like if you shake your head by Elam, you know what his rutzin is. Who are din b'ksav? If you know what his rutzin is, it works. And Yikasha, Rav Zera, Yikasha from Shvuas Eidus is Nishkan Kasha. That's a special din on Eidus that you have to have a Haggadah Eidus and it can't be b'ksav. Says the Gemara Meisvei on that din that you just stated that it has to be b'ksav. I'll question that din. Okay, so we have the layers over here. Rav Kahana's din, the question from Rav Yosef, what's the chiddush? The teretz, the chiddush is speaking about a cherish and shemeya. Question if you can do b'ksav from shuas edus. Teretz the Gemara that edus you need haggadah edus loy b'ksav. Now 1 second, I'll question that. May say, kishem sheboit g'nesoy legitin. Just like our Mishnah said, you go ahead and you ask him if he's an elaim, he wants to write a get. You ask him. So too, you can check him out le'inyan masa umatan le'inyan business or giving him matana, u'leidius and edis, u'leyerushas and yerusha. Now, this is speaking about the elaim, fellas. Just to understand, I think it's an important kuda. What is a bigger raya to communication? Shaking your head or writing? I think we'd all admit what writing is a much clearer, right? Shaking your head is good. You'll check him out, but you have to check him out. You don't have to check out B'ksav. He writes, "I want to divorce my wife." You know, so once you tell me that if shaking your head, is shaking your head is unacceptable, right? Once you tell me that avius you would check out in this. So it says the Gemara following. Mashma le'inyan edis what? You would accept a shaking of the head. So if you would accept the shaking of the head, kol shekain, you would accept b'ksav. But you just told me that what? You don't accept edis b'ksav. Says Rabbi Yosef, Bar Minyumi, Rav Sheshes, we're not speaking about normal edis. What edis are we speaking about? The edis isha, the kulubei rabbanon. We're speaking about edis isha that the rabbanon will make. We by this time in Masechtas, as we at the tail end of Seder Nashim, we know one thing: Mishum Iguna Hikulu B'Rabbanon Le'edis Isha. The last part of the Yevamis by Gunois. Even people who are not believed to say edis, they believe to say that husband's dead. Right? Mishum Iguna Hikulu B'Rabbanon. Right? We're Mekel. Beginning the Masechta, the Shebe Erva. How can one person believe to say B'Fanei Nichtav B'Fanei Nechdam? Says the Gemara. the whole reason why is you're worried about what really you do believe it, but the Shema, whatever the reason is, that was mamash early in the Masechta. So we know that. So Memela, this Eidus that you said, a person who shakes his head is believed, and certainly a person that writes, is speaking about the special waiver by Eidus Isha. It's not speaking about real Eidus. Einachinami. In real Eidus, you need mitpihem v'lepiksavam. So they redden, they have to speak. We know there's a waiver, and therefore that's what we're speaking about, that will accept shaking of the head. Says the Gemara Vaktani Yerushas. You said a bunch of dinim. You said Eidus, you said Yerusha. Now Yerusha isn't the assumption to say that I know that this person inherited it. So you see that what it is an Eidus on Yerusha. Says the Gemara, oh no, Yerushas b'noy habechar. What is that? Yerushas b'noy habechar. What does that mean, guys? That this guy wants to go take the Pishnayim away from his son. He wants to equate all of them. So it's not a din in Eidus, it's a din of communication from him. He would be believed to communicate that he wants to go ahead and make his Bechara a regular guy, a headget. He wants to make him a regular guy, okay? So a pasha. He wants to make him a pasha. Ketani Mia says, in business, right? Isn't he speaking about business ventures of other people, which is Haggadah Eidus? My lav la alma, its own. Okay, you asked your questions. We went ahead and answered it up. Eidus is asking me PM that you just put in is not speaking about normal Eidus, it's speaking about Eidus Isha, or not Eidus at all. It's speaking about his own business, his own Yerusha, and therefore it's not a question on the teretz that we gave to Reb Zera, that Abaye gave to Reb Zera. Mesidei. Okay, we're going to ask on that. Cheresh lo yholchu boy acham remizois va'achav kvitzaisav va'achav ksav yodoi. So now we're going back, fellas, on the kasha on Rav Kahana. We just went ahead and asked about what you told me about me, PM Lebiksavam. We're now going back to the top of the page. That a cheresh who can't hear and can't speak would be believed biksav. Says the Gemara, now no. Says a brisa, again, a brisa, Rav can argue with a brisa. His gestures, his facial expressions, we don't go after them. Nor his lip movements, we don't go after them. And here's what we need: the achak sav yodai elabim metaltalim. Metaltalim, we said earlier in the Masechta, mitum kedei chayav, right? In Quran Nizakin, kedei chayav will go ahead and believe the remises of a cheresh. Le'inyan metaltalim. Avaloi legitin, and it says ksav yodai. So what do you see? A cheresh that gives his ksav yad, we don't believe that tiyufta l'Rav Kahana. Guys, hear the kasha? Mamish often the kasha. It says openly that achak ksav yodai avaloi legitin. By Gitin, we do not go after ksav yad. Rav Kahana said the name of Rav, we do go after ksav yad. So because this brisa, Rav Kahana is forced to say tanoihi. In fact, it's a machloikis tanoim. In other words, Rav Kahana certainly cannot agree with this brisa that says openly ksav yad by get does not help by a cheresh. I have someone who says it does help. I have someone who does help. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet Reb Shimon Gamliel, and then we're going to question Reb Shimon Gamliel to the end of the end of the daf, not to the end of anyway. Tonight, the Tanya. Reb Shimon Gamliel. The medamar mamurim that you don't by Gitin that you don't go after ksav, guys. When that you don't go after ksav is becheresh meikaroi. That's speaking about a full-fledged cheresh. Right? In other words, that his ksav yad is not a ksav yad of deya. In other words, he never had clarity in his life. He never had clarity in his life. He can write. Maybe he goes ahead and he copies somebody else. But again, if he was a cheresh his whole life, we don't go after ksav. Aval pikeach v'nischaresh. If he was healthy and normal, and afterwards he became a cheresh, who koisiv v'hein choismin. He would write it and they would sign it. So says we're answering we're saying there is a Tana who says where a person was what normal, he then became a cheresh. That person would be able to divorce his wife, b'ksav yad, right? So in other words, when Rav Kahana said his din, he did not speak about a cheresh me'ikaroi. A person was always a cheresh. He's speaking about a person who once was normal and then became a cheresh. And Rav Shimon Gamliel, that's the Tana he said it according to. Now, I show you that. Let's go back to the top of the page, and I'll show you it's speaking about a cheresh that was normal and then became a cheresh. Second line in Rashi, cheresh shahaya pikeach. He was normal. Kishekansa, when he married her, the kedushin gemurin, and his kedushasa is kedushin gemurin. The tambi yavamis nischaresh hu or nishtata. If he becomes a cheresh or a shaita, lo yotzi alamis. He can't divorce her. Right? He doesn't have the go-ahead, the ability to go ahead, and since he's a cheresh, to take off the kedushin deraisa. The Ka'am Rav, dim yochel ledaber mitoch haksav, the idea lichlev al klaf kisvu v'tenu ger leishti. He writes in the klaf, write a get and give it to my wife. Atam pleni u'maslim pikeach gomahu. The Kaisav in Noisnin. So that Rashi told us the insight to the end of the daf. We're speaking of Bikeach. When he gave it, it was a full-fledged Kedushin deraisa. Guys, because it was a Kedushin derabbanan, there's no Chiddush. We said just like Nichnis Beremiza, Ken Yaitza Beremiza. There's no Chiddush there. The Chiddush is where it was Kedushin deraisa. Why was Kedushin deraisa? Because when he married her, he was normal. And then he became a cheresh. Nonetheless, since he's capable of writing the information, it's a full-fledged get to go ahead and break a kedushin deraisa. And Rav Shimon Gamliel, that's the opinion that Rav Kahana and Rav said according to that opinion. Are we good? A bobblehead? I'm boitkin. I'm boitkin. I'm boitkin the island, right? Okay. Anyway, geschmack. Now let's digress, guys. It's mashma that what? A cheresh me'ikaroi can't divorce his wife. Anyway, correct? In other words, the whole din of Shimon Gamliel was what? When he was normal, then became a cheresh, yeah? Mashma cheresh me'ikaroi can't divorce his wife, yes? We're going to attack that to the end till the next Mishnah, okay? So you're telling me the cheresh me'ikaroi loy? 1 second, why? Kishem shekoinza b'remiza, kach moitzia b'remiza. Just like Cheresh Meikara means his kedushin was what, guys? Kedushin d'Rabbanan. He was a Cheresh Meikara. So when is it a problem? When, as we saw Rashi, when the kedushin is deraisa, and therefore he can't. His remizas are d'Rabbanan. But where his whole kedushin was d'Rabbanan, kishem shenichnas b'remiza, yaitz b'remiza. So what are you telling me? And for the Gemara, you're right. If it was speaking about his own wife, he would be able to divorce the b'remiza. Hachanami, hacha nami hacha, when he was a cheresh me'ikaroi that he can't divorce his wife, but my askinon, be vimtai. Okay, we know Yavamis 101, guys. A man dies, but leaves no children. He's got a brother-in-law that's a cheresh. He has a wife who falls to that cheresh. Good. Is there a zika? Is that zika deraisa? Can he divorce her? So that's what we meant when we said you can't divorce. You can't divorce when you're cheresh me'ikaroi. It's speaking about a kedushin that came from a yavama, a zika. That's the case. But in Achinami, if he, the cheresh midrabanon, was nichnas b'remiza, he could be right some remisa. So that's where Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said his din. With that you can't divorce cheresh me'ikaroi is where the woman fell. She was yavama, and she felt it was a zika deraisa. Now yivimta miman. Let's say, you know what? He's a cheresh. It could be hereditary. His brother also was a cheresh. So, guys, if his brother was a cheresh, what was the kedushin of the brother? The rabbanon. What was the zika? The rabbanon. So why can't he go ahead and divorce the rabbanon? No, it's the same thing as him. It says Ella, it must be one more kinesh. It fell from a brother that was totally normal. So now, again, in the sugya, fellas, let's go through the sugya. Said Rav Kahana Chiddush. What was Rav Kahana's Chiddush? That a person who was normal and then he became a cheresh can divorce his wife b'ksav. That's a Chiddush, right? That's a Chiddush. The Kedushin was darabanan, b'ksav, daraisa, so the ksav also would do it. We have a brisa that says a man can never do it. It says Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, no, you could. And he goes to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. When was Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's din that says that you could do it? Is dafka when he was normal. Now again, we're going off into Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, right? You understand? We left Rav Kahana. What did Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say? He said that he can divorce b'ksav is only when he was normal. But if he wasn't normal, he can't divorce b'ksav. Fred the Gemara, 1 second. If he was never normal, how did he get this wife in the first place? Only b'ramisa. So why can't he go divorce b'ksav? Certainly, he could divorce b'ramisa. Certainly, he could divorce b'ksav. Says the Gemara, no, you're right. We're not speaking about his wife. We're speaking about his yivama. She came in deraisa from a healthy brother, and therefore, in that case, what? He can't divorce her. Next teretz, Iba Yisema. If it's speaking about cheresh meikara, you know why you can't divorce her, right? Gezerah Iba Yisema lo'ilam nafle meyachiv cheresh. So, guys, if the brother was a cheresh, so it's all the Rabbana in the first place. So why can't he go ahead and divorce her? Gezerah achiv cheresh ata achiv pikeach. If we allow you, when your brother's wife, your brother was a cheresh like you, and will allow you to go ahead and divorce her, then we may allow to divorce her when your brother was a pikeach, and that was a zika deraisa. So we go to the Rabban, zika derabanan, not the zika deraisa. Fred the Gemara, if that's the case, your wife also, that was the Rabbanon, also you should be able to divorce Geiser atu yibum deraisa. Good. Fred, ihachi, if it can be Geiser the Rabbanon to deraisa, ishtay nami, a woman, your own wife, you should not be able to go ahead and divorce the Remiza B'Ksav. Why? Because you may come to go ahead and do it by Yivama. Says Yivimta b'Yivim Mechlafa, Ishtai b'Yivimta l'Mechlafa. Okay, in other words, that's not a Getaina. I don't have to make a Gezeira by Ishtai. Why? Because you're never going to come to mix it up with Yivama. So Yivama derabana, we may make a mistake. Yivama derabana, Yivama deraisa. But Ishtai, the Rabbana, we will make a mistake at the Yivama Deraisa. Therefore, you can go ahead and divorce your wife. I'm not worried that you're going to come to divorce your Yivama when you didn't have the ability to when she was in Sikha Deraisa. Umi Gazrin Cheresh to Pikeach. Okay, now we have a kasha. You say we're Gaisa Yivama Derabanan or the Yivama Deraisa, right? Good. Okay, let's going back to your Yivamis. Two guys married to two sisters, right? Two guys married to two sisters. One brother dies. What's the din? There's nothing. She's free. What's that called? Achas ishtai. Remember what Yivamis, the first mission of Yivamis, right, guys? You have two. You have a Ereva falls to you. There is no Zika. It's gone. There, it's gone. It's not there. So here we have a case. We're going to go through the first mission in the Perek Cheresh. You have two brothers married to two sisters, and one more wrinkle. That one of the constituents over here is a cheresh or a charashos. What does that do? It makes everything here the Rabbanan, guys. So there's two connections over here. One, that it's an erva. It's an erva because they're married to two sisters. And two, one is bikeach and one is what, and one is not. So somewhere along the line in all these cases over here, you're going to have it's all going to be the Rabbanon, because either he's going to be a cheresh or she's going to be a charashos. What happens then if you take away the erva part? By the time you take away the erva part, and you're left with what? You're left with two strangers, right? Two strangers. So that's going to be the raya. Says the Gemara. But Tanan, Shnei achim chereshin, nesuin shtei achayos pichas. You have two brothers who are chereshin, married to two sisters that are pichas. Again, once you have the two sisters, the two brothers, the two sisters, you can forget about it, right? Shnei achayos chereshois, shnei achayos achas pikachas ve'achas chereshois, v'chein shnei achayos chereshois nesuos l'shnei achim pichim. You don't have to go through every single case. The bottom line is, you know that there's no what? They're out. Why they're out? Because it's an erva. It's an erva. Forget about it. Now, if the nachriyos, fellas, right? If the nachriyos, then you got a problem. You konsu, you could do yibum. And if you want to divorce, you divorce. Now, what did you do? We just took out the erva part, and we're left with what? With the pichas part. Good. So, and the pichas, we took out the erva because they're married to two women who are not sisters. So let's see Rashi here. Right? And if they were nachriyos, umeis ech mehem, and one of them dies, Hasheni eini yochel lachliks. The second one can't do chalitza. You know why? So, in other words, we know in the parsha of Yibum, he says, she says. He has to say that what, loichafatzti. She has to say, me'ayin yavami. So he has to say something. Since they can't talk, right? It's out. So what does he have to do? He has to go ahead, right? And he marries her. And if he wants to divorce her, now, so guys, is this kedushin zika d'Rabbanan? Yeah, it's a cheresh. Good. And if he wants to divorce her, he could divorce her. And what do you see? You're not goizer atu where you're not where says the word was the kedushin zika d'Raisa. V'imratzil hoitzian achrei kain says Rashi yetziu the asi get cheresh umafke zikas kedushay cheresh alma heche de naftale me achiv cheresh mafik v'legazrinan atu achiv pikeach. Back in time. The Gemara guys outside. Take a look at me. Look at the camera. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said that you can divorce b'ksav. When can you divorce b'ksav? A guy was normal and then became a cheresh. But if you became a cheresh, then what? Then you can't divorce. Fred the Gemara, why can't you divorce if you became a cheresh? You only use mekadosh the Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, you're right. We're speaking about kedusha deraisa, became as zika from deraisa. Okay. Says and therefore what? Therefore, since it's zika deraisa, therefore since the zika is deraisa, then what? Then you can't divorce. Says the Gemara, right? Which zika deraisa? It must be speaking where the brother was normal. The second teretz is what? Where the brother wasn't normal. He was a cheresh too, and we're going to cheresh atu pikeach. In our case, we just gave. How in the world can we go ahead? The following. You had two brothers married to two friends. Somewhere along the line, there's a cheresh mixed in over here. So the whole zik is what is the Rabbanan. You can't do chalitza because it's because of a loophole, right? You can't do chalitza. There has to be dibur over here from him and her, and you don't have it. Good. So what do you have? You have a zika de Rabbanan, and therefore you can do yibum. Not only can you do yibum, you could divorce her. So 1 second. You're telling me I have a cheresh that can divorce a cheresh. We have a kedusha de Rabbanan, a zika de Rabbanan that you could divorce. Why am I not worried that I allowed this to Rabbanan that you might divorce the Raisa, which is not allowed? Because again, if it's the Raisa, you're stuck because you're cheresh or chereshes, right? Elamat. So what do you see? You're not goiza. Pikeach cheresh the Rabbanan ata the Raisa. And the mela, the second teretz that you gave to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that it's speaking about a zika, that it can even be speaking of zika de Rabbanan, is not true, because if it's zika de Rabbanan, you would be able to divorce b'ksav. So when Shimon ben Gamliel said cheresh meikaroi, it could only mean what? It could only mean that when it was a zika de oraisa, says the Gemara, back by us. Ella, what do you have to say? Mechavarta, it's clear, kedushin meikara, it's speaking about the zika was a zika de oraisa, and therefore you can't go ahead and take it off b'ksav. Okay, now, Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, chalukin alav chaveirov al Rav Shimon Gamliel. The Tanakama argues on Rav Shimon Gamliel. Okay, let's look back at let's look back at this brisa. I can look at it a different way, guys. Let's look at the brisa. Ayin aleph am aleph. Meisive. See the Tosfos v'hoyachal adav mitoch haksav. Parallel to that, one line down. Meisive. Cheresh leholchu by achem remizaysa v'achitzaysa. We don't go after his remizayis. We don't go after his lip utterances. We don't go after that, right? Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel speaks. Is it possible that he's explaining the Tanakama? Guys, watch. By that you don't go after beget, that's only if it's a cheresh meikarai. But if it was a cheresh that was normal and then became, it would be biksav. I possibly could say that, guys, right? You understand what I just did? That Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is not coming to argue on the Tanakama. he's coming to explain the Tanakama. When the Tanakama said you can't divorce biksav, that was only a cheresh me'ikaroi. But a cheresh that was normal, you could divorce biksav. I possibly could make that mistake. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan to tell you, no. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is arguing on the Tanakama. The Tanakama says, even if it's a cheresh that was normal, he still can't be divorced biksav. Even though once upon he was normal, he can't divorce biksav. That's what Rabbi Yochanan is coming to tell me. Not that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is explaining the Tanakama, that he's arguing on the Tanakama, okay? That's going to be the end to the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan, Chalukin Lav Chaver Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. They argue. In other words, he's not coming to explain. Rabbi, that they're arguing. Meaning, guys, what? Meaning that the Tanakama would hold that even though he's normal, he can't go ahead and divorce biksav. The status, if she becomes a shaita, lo yotzi. Nischarish, right? If he becomes a cheresh, oy nishtato, he becomes a shaita, lo yotzi alamis. He can never get rid of it ever. Period. When he was kedushin, it was good kedushin. He only became afterwards. So he was not a cheresh me'ikaroi, and nonetheless it says you can't go out at all. So what do you see? Later of Shimon Gamliel, you would be able to go out, right? But it must be who's the shita? This is the shita of the Tanakama. So you see that the Tanakama of Shimon Gamliel is not coming to explain the Tanakama; he's arguing the Tanakama. Was that good? Hope so. We'll go over it again. Maya lamis. When it said lamis, what does that mean? Lav afagav diyochel ledabim b'toich haksav, and nonetheless you can't divorce. When you got married, you were healthy, and now you're writing you want a divorce. Ella must be, the Tanakama says, once you're a shaita, bistu shaita, and you can never get divorced. So obviously what? We have a raya that Rav Shimon Gamliel argues in the Tanakama, right? Good. Now, you know what the Gemara is going to do now? It's going to show you there's no raya. In other words, I can learn another pshat over here that shows you that they don't argue. Einachinami, Rabbi Yochanan is correct. And really they do argue. But the raya that you, Abaya, want to bring is not a raya. Guys, one more time. The possibility exists for you to say that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is coming to explain the Tanakama, that when did the Tanakama say you can't get divorced biksav is only when you were a cheresh me'ikaroi. But if you were not a cheresh me'ikaroi, then you would be able to get divorced. You would be able to get divorced, right? Says Rabbi Yochanan, no. Tanakama says, even if you were healthy meikara, you can't get divorced. Says Abaya, I'm going to bring a raya to that. The Gemara now is going to destroy the raya. Why was Abaya's raya? It says you can never get divorced. Elamis. You were normal, now you're a cheresh, you can't get out. Obviously, according to Shimon Gamliel, you could get out. So it must be, who is this? The Tanakama, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So l'chayra Abaya has a raya to Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara is not going to disagree with Rabbi Yochanan, it's just going to destroy the Abaya as Abaya's raya. Amar Papa, Ilav Dashmin Rabbi Yochanan, Have Yamin Rabbi Shimon the Frushe time the Tanakama who dasi. Umaya Lamis, what does Lamis mean? Afagav the Chazin lay the Chorif. Even though that what? Even though Afagav the Chazin lay the Chorif, even though I see that this guy what is a very sharp guy, right? Even though I see he's a very sharp guy, in other words, this cherish is really on the ball. You see people who are challenged, but this guy's on the ball. So you might think since he's on the ball, you could get divorced. Kamashmon, you can't. But biksav, you could. In other words, he's agreeing with the Tanakama. In other words, once it says Elamis over here, Abaya's raya, I don't have to say Elamis that you can never get divorced. I could say you can't get divorced even if you look like a charif. But if you go ahead and be able to write, you would be able to get divorced. And the Tanakama is agreeing with Rav Shimon Gamliel. Inami, or else I could pass you in the Elamis. The Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak, Devar Torah, Shoitim Iskareshes, a Shoita can get divorced. Midi dehavi apikachas, bal karcha, just like a pikachas who can be divorced against her will, right? So to a Shoita can be divorced against the will. My tam amru einim iskareshes, shleyinik ba minik hefker. I would have said layotzer Elamis means the following: that this female, right? Really, in other words, we know we don't need the das of the female. We don't need the das of the female, right? We don't need her das. What's the raya? You can divorce her against the will. So I would think even if she loses the capacity to receive a get because she's not normal, you still could divorce her because we don't need a das. And I would say Olamis means that what? Olamis is that we don't allow a divorce because we're worried since this woman is not normal, she will maybe mafka herself. She doesn't have the shlita of a baal over her. So really, al ksav, you could get divorced. And when it says like lamis, we won't let you get divorced, simply want to protect her. But in a chinami, you have no raya. Okay, again, you have the shita of Kahan in the name of Rav, that a cherish that was normal once upon a time, and the kedusha was kedusha daraisa, biksav, even though usually a cherish is grush is nothing. Who over here it would be a good gerish, very gishmak. Okay, the next piece of the Gemara is very contingent upon something we learned earlier, a very difficult Gemara. We're going to go back to that difficult Gemara, and we're going to learn the very gishmak, Erev Tisha B'Av, V'chapen Arayim, because it hurts us not to learn, and we're doing our best Erev Tisha B'Av to get in our best learning before Chatzos. Okay, so Samech Vav, Amid Aleph, bottom line. Let's learn a piece of Gemara that we learned not too long ago. Bottom line, Samech Vav Amid Aleph. L'shnayim. A guy says to two people, Tnu get l'ishti, give a get to my wife. Amid Beis. Or l'shloisha, or he says to three people, Kisvu get v'tnu l'ishti, write a get and give to my wife. Hari elu yichtgu v'yitnu. They go ahead, what? They can write it, v'yitnu, and they can give it. Meaning, they themselves have to do it, guys. Why? Why do they have to do it? Because they can't give the shlichus over to somebody else. Mili loy mimsru l'shliach in this situation, right? Because the guy was he told two people, give it. Mashma, they have to do everything. Okay, told two or three people write it and give it. Is makbid that want that they write it. However, if he says to three, he doesn't say write a get, but he says tenu get lishti. Now this P3 can become a bezdin. Bezdin, maybe if you hold mili mimsur l'shliach, they would now be able to tell people to write and people to sign, which is the shita of Rabbi. Hari elu yomru la'acherim. Even though this guy said to the three tenu, they're able to say to others the yichtavu, and to give, to write, and to sign fnei shason bezdin. Because this person, by saying tenu to three, he made him a bezdin divrei Rabbi, and this is the shita of mili mimsur l'shliach. The words that he said tenu to bezdin, mili, those words are therefore being able to give an over to a shliach, that they are able to do the same thing. Mili, words mimsur l'shliach. The zu halacha hel Rab Chanina ish koina mi beis Asuri, brought from Rabbi Akiva. I have a Kabbalah. If you say to three people, Tenu gel ishti, sheyomer lacherim, they can tell others v'yichdu fnei shaz bezdin. I'm Rabbi Yossi. I'm not buying it. Neminu l'shliach. We said to the shliach, af onu mekubalim, she'afilu onu lebezdin hagadah shebishalayim. The 71 members of the Sanhedrin Gedolah, Tenu gel ishti, shel yilmedu. They had to learn how to write a get v'yichdu v'yitnu. They can't give it over. Why? Because mili loy mimsru l'shliach. Okay, now, there's two dinim over here. There's the din of mili, and there's the din of omru imru. That omru imru. So when I say to two people, tenu, right? They can't do it because mili l'shliach. According to Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi, if I say to Bezdin, then we do say mili l'shliach. Says Rabbi Yossi that when I say to two people, right? I say to two people about to three people, I say tenu ged leishti, still mili le'mimsur l'shliach, they have to do the job. What happens if I say to two people or three people, tell others to write a get, tell others to sign a get, tell others to write a get, tell others to sign a get? So that's omru, omar, imru. I didn't make you the shliach, I made you a shliach to make a shliach. Good. What's the din over there? So we saw that Shmuel argues with Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi would hold across the board that afilu omru imru doesn't work. Afilu omru imru doesn't work. I'll say it over here. We're going to get back to it in the Gemara. The reason is the following. We have a Gemara later on that says that the sofer should write and an eight should sign, that it's a good get. What's it speaking about? It says where you told the shliach, the sofer to sign. You told the shliach to sign, right? Now that must be according to Rabbi Yossi, because according to Reb Meir, you know what you have to worry about? Then in the case where he says write a get, right? If you didn't tell him to sign, maybe he'll feel bad for the sensitivity to the cipher, and he'll tell the cipher, you sign, even though he didn't mean it. But we're not worried about that. Why are we not worried about that? Because he so that case must be according to what? To Reb. Now, if Amru Imru, if Reb Yossi is Moed Imru, then I would have to worry. If he says this, then you still have to worry. If a guy says to two people, tell two people to write a get for my wife, and two people to sign the get, and now he goes to the cipher, and now he says, oh, the cipher, 1 second. I feel so bad. You're writing the get, and now I'm going to tell two people to sign. And why? And I was able to tell you to write the get, and I was able to tell two people to sign the get, but now I'm feeling bad for you. So why are we not worried about that? What's the answer? Because Rabbi Yossi also holds Amru Imru also is no good. Okay, with that in mind, let's begin the sugya by us. I gave you a lot of information. It should hopefully it'll make a lot of sense. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Amru loy, right? Amru loy, nichdav get leishtach. A person says, we say to him, should we write a get to your wife? Now it's either speaking about a healthy person or a not healthy person, but we're saying, should we write a get to your wife? And he says to them, Kasuvu, write it. Amru l'Seifer, and they go ahead and they tell the Seifer. Amru l'Seifer, they go ahead, what? And they tell the Seifer, the Kasav, and he writes it. Ula Eidim, and they go tell Eidim, v'chasmu, and the Eidim sign. Afal pi shekasvu v'chasmuhu, even though they had it written and they had it signed, v'nasnu Allah, they give it back to him. They give it to him. V'chazar v'nasnu Allah, and he goes and gives it what to her. In other words, he said to them, write it. He said to those people, yes, should we write it? They said yes. They then go ahead and tell the cipher, and then they tell people to sign. Now they come back to him, give him the get. He says, great. He goes in and gives it to the wife. You think everything's hunky-dory? What's the answer? Hari get batal. You know why? Because mili loy mimsero l'shliach. At sheyoyim l'seifer, until he physically tells the cipher, kosav ule'edim chasumu. He has to tell the cipher that he should write it, and edim chasum. Doesn't work in that. Okay, now the rest of the Gemara is going to ferois the reisha to the seifa, trying to figure out how do we reconcile the reisha to the seifa, the reisha being Reb Meir, and the seifa being what? And the seifa being Reb Yossi. How is the reisha Reb Meir, guys? What did he tell? What did they say to the guy? They said to him, write a get. Should we write a get? And he said, yeah. So now, if they don't write the get, it's not good. You know why? This guy's embarrassed. He doesn't want people to know that he can't write a get. So if you're going to go ahead and tell a cipher, you're going to be embarrassing him. So when you asked me, do I want to divorce my wife, and I told you write, I meant you write. Therefore, you didn't have the right to give that over. Not because it's mealy, but because I'm makbid on you writing it. In other words, it's not the fact I said write a get, you can't give it to somebody else. The reason you can't somebody else, because when I told you to write it, I was makbid you writing it. What happens if they said to nu get liishti? Should we give a get to your wife? And he says yes. Reb Meir would hold, go ahead and do it. Mili mimsul l'shliach. Since he didn't say you write it, he wasn't makbid. So therefore, he just said give it. So obviously the diak of the Mishnah is the reason why it doesn't work because he said kasvu, write it. What happens if he would have said tanu? It would work. So why would it work? Because mili mimsul l'shliach. What does the Sefer say? It's not a get till he physically goes ahead and right? Why? Because mili loy mimsul l'shliach. Kasha reish on the Sefer. As I state, says the Gemara. Taima, the reason why it's not a good get in the Reisha, the lo yama tenu, because he didn't say tenu. He only said kisvu. And he said kisuvu, he's makbid, that other people don't know he can write a get, only you ate him. Ha'ama tenu, noistin. Now, noistin, even though what? Other people wrote the get, not them. Money, who is the Tan of our Mishnah world's mili mimshul l'shliach? Guys, you see why it's mili? You said give the get, and they went ahead and they told the cipher to write the get. That's mili. Aim a sefer. What does the last thing of the sefer say? At sheyom le sefer, till you tell the sefer, kasu, you write it, ule'edim chasumu, you sign it. Why is that put on him? Because Adam can't tell the sefer, and Adam can't tell others to sign. Why? And as we know by now, going through Shas, what? When Rabbi made the Mishnah, he wants to come out what? L'kuli alma. He wants it to be one Tana. Reisha Rabbi of the Sefer Rabbi Yossi. The Reisha is Rabbi and the Sefer is Rabbi Yossi. Says in. I'm forced to say Reisha Rabbi of the Sefer Rabbi Yossi. Guys, you have it. The Reisha is Rabbi Yossi because Tanu would work. The Sefer clearly is Rabbi. Excuse me. The Reisha is Rabbi because what? Because Tanu would work. The Sefer is Rabbi Yossi because you're makbid dafka him because any dibur won't work. Why? Because mili lemishul shliach. So we're forced to say right now in the first teretz, the Reisha is Rabbi and the Sefer Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara now will go ahead and that's the word I'm looking for. The word, look, wait, I'm missing a word over here. Explore. Okay, the Mishnah will explore that perhaps the Mishnah is both according to Rabbi Meir, or perhaps they're both Rabbi Yossi. That the Sefer is Rabbi Yossi and the Reisha Rabbi Meir. Okay, we're going to go ahead and explore that. Okay, says the Gemara. Abaya Omar Kul Rabbi Meir. Everything is Rabbi Meir. What's problematic then, guys? The Sefer, right? The Sefer is makbid that the Baal do it. Says the Gemara. Abaya Omar Kul Rabbi Meir. Here's the way you read the Mishnah. The Leyama Tenu. The reason why the Baal has to say it because he didn't say Tanu, he only said Kesuvu. Good. So here's look at the Mishnah, guys. That's Reb Meir, right? Because if you would have said Tanu, it would work. Now, what's the last thing of the Mishnah? It's not a get at sheyoyim l'seifer Kesuvu l'eidnim chasmu, right? But what happens if you would have said Tanu? Then it would work. Good. So now the Reisha is also Reb Meir. Fred the Gemara, but that's not what the Mishnah says. It doesn't say Achiyoma Tenu. It says until he says the cipher. Mashma, the Akpad is on him, even if he did say Tenu. So Fred the Gemara, Hachi, back by us. If you're telling me the cipher is Reb Meir, Achiyoma Tenu mi boile. It shouldn't say until he tells the cipher. It should mean that it's not a get until he says Tenu. It's not a get because he said Kasuvu. It would be a get if he said Tanu, but it doesn't say that. It says until he physically tells them. So obviously, the Reisha can't be Reb Meir. Alacha mayaskinon, the Sefer can't be Reb Meir. Alacha mayaskinon, the lo yamal l'beit tilsa. Again, if you say in front of two, even Reb Meir is more in that case, that 2 by 2 doesn't work. It only works by 3. Says the Mari Hachi Achiyam Shleisha, because they're a bestin, right? So again, why did the Mishnah say Achiyam l'Seifer? No, Achiyam l'Tilsa. Right? Then, because you say in front of 3, then it would be good. But it doesn't say that. So therefore, we explore the possibility, according to Abaya, that the whole Mishnah is according to Reb Meir, and the Sefer is speaking where until you say Tanu, that doesn't work. Until you say in front of 3, that doesn't work. So now we're going to explore the possibility that the Reisha is Rabbi Yossi also. Good. Now we're going to go back. Elakul Rabbi Yossi. Everything's Rabbi Yossi. V'hacha mayaskinan t'layama imru. The reason why... Really, what's your diak, guys? Your diak is the reason why it's not a good get because you said kasvu. And our diak was if you say tanu, it would be a good get. No, even if you say tanu, it wouldn't be a good get. You know why? Even if you said give this get to my wife, they would have to write it. The reisha means that the diak is the reason why if you say kasvu and I'll add, or you say tanu, it's not a good get. Because you didn't say to them, say to Sefer, say to get. You didn't say Omer Imru. But if you would have said Omru Imru, it would be good. So in other words, I'm changing the ratio, right? And I'm saying your diak was Tanu would work. No, Tanu won't work either. Because but if you would have said to the Baal, would have said to Adam, say to others, then it would work. Because he's holding now, he says Omru Imru would work. And therefore, in the Sefer, it doesn't work. Why? Because he has to say it over to them. Same kasha, guys. The Sefer should say, At sheyongma oma imru, says the Gemara. If that's the case, At sheyoymar, and when it's said in the Sefer that it's not a get until they hear it verbally from him, Akshiyomu imrui boile, until it's not a good get, until he says to others. But it doesn't say that. It's mashma that what? That they have to hear from him. V'oy, mi moide Rabbi Yossi b'amu imru. And guess what? Your whole premise is wrong, because as we know, Rabbi Yossi's moida by amru imru, it doesn't work. And again, and that's the raya we brought from the case of, you're always worried that they may feel bad for the cipher and tell the cipher to write when the Baal was mitzvah that. So, and now we're going to bring that raya, guys. So it's geschmack now because we know this Gemara. So what do you want to answer? You want to answer that the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. And what was Yediak? Yediak, to begin with, the reason why it's not a good get, because he said, Kasvu, you write it, and he was makbid on that. But he has said to Nu, it would be a good get, because Mili Mimshul Shliach. Nope, that's not the diak. Whether he said Kasvu, write it, or he said to Nu, give it, it won't work. What? It's not a good get until Amru Imru, that he said to the Eidim to tell others. Fred the Gemara, two questions. One, then the sefer of the Mishnah should not have said until the Baal says it. The sefer of the Mishnah should have said until he tells others. The same way we asked by Rabbi Meir, until he says in front of three, until what he said to Nu. Good? And secondly, your whole premise is wrong. Because Rabbi Yossi's moida by Amru is not moida by Amru Imru. He says, Afilu Amru Imru wouldn't work. Right? Says the Gemara. Matanan. Kosav Sefer Ve'ed Kosher. The Mishnah says later on, Daf Pei Zayin, if you go ahead and write a Sefer writes in the 8 signs, it's good. Mashma that the Sefer is writing the 8 signs. From Rav Yirmiyah, Chasam Sefer Sheninu. We're not speaking about we told him to write, we told him to write a sign. From Rav Chisda Maslisan money, who's the Tan of the Mishnah? It's Rabbi Yossi. The Omar Mili my Minsul Shliach. So therefore, we're not worried that what? That the aid might go ahead and tell the Sefer to sign, even though he didn't make him a shliach, and therefore something bad will happen. The Zin and the Amalu L'Shnayim will tell 2 people, Amru L'Sefer, they could tell the Sefer, which is not a problem, the Yichtaim and they'll write, and then Amru L'Ploni, the Yachtaim, they'll sign. And now, you Sefer worked so hard on writing it, and now we're getting the Eidim? The Sefer Chayish, right? Umachtem lei, ubalo yamahachi. Baal never said that the Sefer should, right? So why are we worried about this? You know why we're not worried about this? Because afilu amru imru, Rabbi Yossi what says is no good. So your terrorist that you just wanted to give now that the Mishnah, according to Rabbi Yossi, doesn't work. So get outside, guys. Let's go out of Mishnah. We have a Mishnah. Our Mishnah says if a guy says to 2 Eidim, they said, should we write a get? He says, yes. No way. There's no way they could write to get, signed to get, mamish, sign. No, it doesn't work. 0. Why? Because he was makbid that they write the get. However, right? Okay. The diak is because he was makbid. What happens if he said to Nu, where he's not makbid? The havamina is that what? Not the havamina, that it would be a good get. Why would it be a good get? He said to Nu, you're not able to give that over to somebody else. It's words. And mili mimsul shliach. Obviously, the ratio must go according to Rabbi Meir that says mili mimsul shliach. 1 second. The sefer of the Mishnah says it's not a good get till he tells the sefer and he tells the Eidim. Mashma mili mimsul shliach. Says Abaye, the whole Mishnah is according to Rabbi Meir. Just go ahead and make the following change. It's not a good get until he says, but once he says, it's a good get. Tanu says the Gemara, doesn't fit in with the sefer. The sefer says until he says verbally. Okay, but again, Tanu in front of 3. When front of 3, then it's a bezdin. Doesn't say it's a bezdin. Okay, I failed. The Mishnah is not according to Rabbi Meir, totally. So the Mishnah must be according to Rabbi Yossi. How can the Mishnah be according to Rabbi Yossi? Didn't you tell me the diak of the ratio that you say Tanu would work? According to Rabbi Yossi, it doesn't work. He goes, correct, Tanu doesn't work. The diak of the ratio is it's not a good get, whether he says to them write it or he says to them give it. It's not a good get till he says tell others to write it, tell others to give it. Then it would be a good get, right? If that's the case, why in the sefer doesn't it say that? Why does it says over there until he says it? It's not true. It should say until he says Amru Imru. And secondly, your diak is not a good diak. Your diak is Kisvu doesn't work, Tanu doesn't work, but Amru Imru would work. According to Rabbi Yossi, Amru Imru also doesn't work. Why? Because we've proven from a Mishnah later on that a case where you sign, he says, write the get to a sefer and sign to an aid, and it must be sign the get. And we're not worried about a case of writing the get that he's going to tell the sefer to sign the get, because Milei Mishul Shliach. And if you tell me Amru Imru, why are we worried about the next step? That what? He may tell aid to tell others. Why are we worried about that what? That they'll feel bad for the sefer and signing. We're not worried about that. Why are we not worried about that? Because I feel Amru Imru doesn't work. So Al Karch, what do you have to say? The Reisha is Reb Meir and the sefer is Reb Yossi. It's a little cheshbon, but it's a cheshbon that we know because some Samach Fav. Says the Gemara Vaita. El Mechavarta Reisha Reb Meir v'sefer Reb Yossi. Okay, no, one more chance. Rav Ashi Amar Kula Reb Yossi. Rashi says, you know what? The whole Mishnah is Reb Yossi. Guys, they're much schwer. The Reisha, right? The Reisha is schwer. V'loimi boy kamar. Read it the following way. You don't need to tell me. Loimi boy heichad loy amar tanu. You don't need to tell me that even when he doesn't say tanu, it's not good. Elafilu amar tanu loy. Even if it say tanu, it's not good. Why? Because milei mushal shliach. V'loimi boy heichad loy amar libei tilsa. You don't need to tell me whether it doesn't say in front of three, which you may think it's a bezdin. Elafilu amar libei tilsa loy. Right? Why? Because amru imru also doesn't work. Let me boy hechad loy amru imru elafilu amru imru nami loy. Tanya Kavasi Ravashi Ksav Soifel Lishma the Chasmu Eidin Lishma Afa Pishe Kasvuhu. Even though they wrote it, the Chasmu they signed it. The Nasnu law they gave it to him. The Nisan law and he gave it to her. How he get batal at She Yishmu Kailoi. What does that mean? That they hear his voice. She Yoima LeSeifer She Yishmu that the Sefer hears Kasav Ule Eidim Chasuma. They have to hear his voice. Why do you have to hear his voice? Because if you hear from the Eidim anything, whether it's Tanu or whether it's Amru Imru, it doesn't work. That's the Raya too, right? As the Gemara says now, Yishma'u, they have to hear from the owner himself, the Baal. Lafuki Mandama Moider of Yosi Bo Imru, like Mandama Amru Imru would work. And this Yishma'u, they have to hear from who? From the Baal. Why? Because Amru Imru doesn't work. What about Kailoi? What about his voice? Now, his voice means that there's no way you could tell to divorce a wife biksav. You have to hear it what? Bikoil. That's not like the first part of the share. Not like Rav Chan in the name of Rav that you could divorce biksav. And koiloi lafuki mit Rav Kahana Amar Rav who said you could divorce biksav. Kemash Malon that what? You have to hear the koil.